Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about one of the most common questions I get all the time, and I'm just going to tie it all in and have it make sense for you guys. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Okay, the questions I get asked all the time are, if so-and-so is on steroids, why aren't they bigger? Why don't they look like a steroid freak? If you're on testosterone, why aren't you bigger? Why don't you look like at least a low-level IFBB pro? Why isn't everyone who's using gear or who you claim is using gear huge? Well, let me give you guys a little hint first of all. Lance Armstrong admitted to using testosterone and growth hormone for over a decade. He also lifted weights. It's documented. We have documented evidence in his training logs that he consistently lifted weights also. He didn't look like he lifted. Look at a lot of your big NFL linemen. Some of those guys are abusing amounts of testosterone, growth hormone, and insulin that you may not even be able to afford. Even some of you with good jobs probably can't afford the amount of drugs they use. And a lot of you wouldn't think they look like a steroid freak. And they lift a lot of weights, and a lot of them do a lot of hypertrophy work. They just look like a big fat lineman to you. So we start to get into the question of why. What's the difference? And it's because standards have been skewed. Because if we use people's same logic, we know that Arnold's day, those guys were using tremendous amounts of steroids, mind-boggling amounts of steroids. In fact, I know someone who's well known in this industry who told me in a private conversation that when he met with Arnold in person and chatted with him years ago, and he asked Arnold how much D-bol did he used to take in the day, Arnold told him, I really don't know because I never counted them. I just poured a whole handful of the pills into my hand and ate them. And if you think about that, a handful of pills means he didn't just take 5 or 6 of those D-bols at once. He ate handfuls of them. Didn't even count them. So the question becomes, then why didn't Arnold and the guys in his day look like the big IFBB guys today? And it's quite simple. The guys today use more drugs. 99.9% of people who use anabolic steroids do not even have the money to do the amount of drugs that your IFBB guys do. Some of them are spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 every single year on their drug bill. So expecting that people who use a bit of gear are going to be anywhere near their ballpark is really ignorant. And I guess a lot of people are simply not aware of that. They have no clue. And I'll give you a perfect example. Look at Boston Lloyd. He gave you guys, for his contest prep, his entire stack. And people are saying, yeah, you can tell he looks like he's on gear. But if we're at a point to where a person has to use the amount of gear he used and the amount of synthol he used for people to pick out and say, oh yeah, that guy's on gear, then that shows how far the delusion has gone and how little people know about this, because he didn't just use a bit of gear. He used more gear than I would ever consider using in my entire life. I wouldn't even personally consider using the amount of gear that he used, even in prepping for a powerlifting meet. If I wanted to take first place and I wanted to be a national champion in powerlifting, I wouldn't use the amount of gear he used. So put that in perspective. But that's how much it takes for him to compete where he wants to compete. And to be honest, he's going to need more than he's on if he really wants to go seriously pro in the IFBB. He's going to have to up the dose. So that answers the question of why these people don't. And it's the same thing when people talk about natural bodybuilders and they say, well, if this guy, why would they do that? They can make more money in the IFBB with the sponsorships and things there, but people aren't factoring in the drug cost. Let's say, for example, if you thought that as an IFBB pro, you could make $60,000 a year off of all of your sponsorships, donations, commercials, ads, spots in magazines, whatever, $60,000 a year. But you're going to have to spend a minimum of $30,000 a year on drugs. You're only going to make $30,000. Now, a natural bodybuilder who's going to do really, really well, whether it's through his YouTube channel, because there's guys on YouTube right now making well over $100,000 a year. People that you guys watch off their YouTube. So let's even set that aside. We'll set that aside. We'll talk about guys who don't do YouTube at all. Let's say that just off of sponsorships and publicity and their sales as a personal trainer, being able to market themselves as a natural, if they can do all of that and say make $50,000 a year instead of that $60,000, but they only spend $5,000 a year on drugs, they've turned a profit of $45,000. Or even if they spend 10 grand on drugs, let's say they get some growth hormone and things in there, 10 grand, they've turned a profit of $40,000. They have made more net money off of their income minus the cost of their drugs in the IFBB Pro example. So you ask the question of why would someone use drugs and choose to compete as a natural instead of in the IFBB? Quite simply because their drug bill could be $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 a year, every single year difference in what they spend on drugs to compete in the two, even though both are chemically enhanced. So it is a matter of simple economics, and it's also a matter of health. Most people who are only using the amount of gear, a lot of these people who do use and still do natty shows and natural events are probably not going to suffer many or any serious health problems as a result of it. Let's be realistic here. Data doesn't support that they're in danger. But you start going to IFBB doses, what these guys are using, the amount of shit they're putting into their body, it's a whole different ballgame. A lot of these guys are seriously risking dramatically shortened life. They're risking health problems. So that is another reason why people would choose the other route. Not only might it be more cost effective and they make more money at the end of the day, they're probably going to live a lot longer on top of it. Alright guys, so hopefully that explains a few things and that clarifies some points. And it lets you guys know how skewed our views have gotten of what we consider to be an enhanced physique versus what isn't, just due to modern marketing and the way things have been spun. That people really don't seem to know the difference anymore. 30 years ago this wouldn't have been a problem. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.